This is a video to help those students who missed the lecture or missed something I said in class. This is on the French Revolution, and this lecture answers the question, how did the society of the old regime lead to the French Revolution? The French Revolution began because of social problems the old regime had in the 1770s. This was a system of feudalism where people were divided into three social classes known as estates. Here is a map of France to help orient yourself. The first two estates had privileges such as access to political office and tax exemption. The third estate did not have access to political office and had to pay a lot of taxes. The first estate was everybody who was a priest or bishop, basically anybody who was in the Catholic Church. They were really wealthy because they owned about 10% of the land in France. But they also provided education and relief to the poor, but they only paid 2% of their income as tax to the government. To give you an idea of how wealthy the church was, here is a photo of the Church of Notre Dame in France. The second estate was all the rich nobles, including the king, who were really wealthy because they owned about 20% of the land in France, but they only made up about 2% of the population. Technically, they were 1.8%, and the Catholic Church was 0.2%, and they paid almost no taxes whatsoever. Here's a picture of Louis XVI, who needed the support of his other nobles to run the countries. And for the last 175 years, the king and the nobles paid no taxes. The third estate was 98% of the population of France. And within the third estate, there was three groups. The first group was the bourgeoisie. These were merchants and artisans like carpenters and plumbers. They were really well educated and they believed in Enlightenment concepts such as liberties and equality. Many were just as wealthy as the nobles, yet they paid higher taxes and felt entitled to the status and powers that comes with wealth. But remember, they didn't have access to political office and they had to pay a lot of taxes. Here is a picture of some bourgeoisie from a French newspaper. Notice that they're wearing the knee breeches on their legs. The second group is known as the workers. They're mainly living in the cities, and they're cooks or servants, and they're much poorer than the bourgeoisie. They were paid much lower wages, and they were often out of work. And they lived on bread. And if the cost of bread rose rapidly, they would mob the grain carts that were bringing in the flour and the grains to make bread, and they would steal. Later, they became known as the sans-culottes, those without knee breeches. And you can see a picture of him to the right, and he's just wearing regular pants. The third group was the largest group of France's third estate. These were the peasants. They were about 80% of France's population. They paid half their income to dues to nobles or taxes. Dues could mean like they had to give a chicken to the noble every week. They began to resent the upper class for their privilege and special treatment. To the right, you see a modern artist who made some models of a French peasant family from the 18th century. In addition to all this peasant resentment, you had other factors that were contributing to the revolutionary mood, mainly the Enlightenment ideas. These were new ideas about how society and government should be structured. This questioned the long-standing ideas of feudalism with terms like liberty and equality. Liberty means freedom from government involvement, and equality means being treated equally before the law. And as we studied in our last unit, the American Revolution was founded on the ideas of French Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau. Voltaire promoted ideas such as freedom of speech and religion, and Rousseau stressed the importance of the rights of the individual. In the summer of 1789, the U.S. Bill of Rights was ratified. This document gave every citizen of the United States the very ideas that Voltaire and Rousseau promoted. Here is a very famous political cartoon published during the summer of 1789. And this shows the third estate, lying on the ground, being crushed by a rock. On the rock, there's various words for taxes, taille, imports, and corvées. And standing on the rock, crushing the third estate, is a priest and a nobleman. And this really captures the mood of the Third Estate on the eve of the French Revolution.